My cell phone burst forth with such an incessant ringing that it dragged me off the spreadsheets I had been poring over for what seemed like ages. It was Martin, my father-in-law, calling at a very odd hour, especially since he knew I would be working late. "Hey, Martin, is everything okay?" I asked, a knot twisting in my stomach. He was trembling. "Jared, you have to come home right now. It's about Tessa." My heart raced as I stuffed everything into my bag and practically ran out of the office. What could it be about? Was something wrong? For the torturous drive home, it was as if my mind was racing, considering every possible worst-case scenario. When I burst through the door, there was Martin, seated in the living room with eyes rimmed in tears. His tremor was unmistakable as he shakily held out the phone for me to see a video. Initially, the image on the little screen was blurry, only the dimly lit interior of a car. Then I saw my wife, my Tessa, entangled in a steamy kiss with a stranger. Rage and disgust boiled inside me as I watched her hands blatantly roam over his body. For a long moment, I found myself speechless, staring at Martin. He just nodded. Stricken with his own grief and remorse, a deep line was set across the weathered lines of his face. "I'm so sorry, son," he finally managed to rasp. "I should have told you as soon as I saw it happen in my rearview mirror." Numbly, I listened to Martin recount the sordid details minutes after picking up a raving couple outside a club, and only then realizing too late that Tessa was the woman. He had dropped her insultingly smarmy partner somewhere random before bringing my drunken, useless wife home. Just above me, she lay a drunken, half-conscious mass. The storm she had unleashed for her conscience completely. Oblivious. All I could think of was to storm upstairs and scream at her, while in a rage over her. I was about to do something when I saw something try to stop me. He was holding my arm, and his hand was trembling. "I know how you're feeling now, Jared. The pain, the anger. You felt as if someone ripped your heart out from your body." I could only sit there dumbfounded as the first hot tears scarred my cheeks. Martin's own eyes glistened with the tears. He continued, "When Tessa's mom did this to me so many years ago, I wanted to lash out to repay for my humiliation and the lies. But I didn't. I hung on for my kid, and I flippin' think that was the biggest mistake of my life." His words filled the room with almost 30 years worth of suffering. "So don't you make the same mistake I did, son, and neither should you do anything rash. Think, for Liam's sake, if nothing else." I couldn't sleep while she didn't. Opened her phone, and, boy, am I in for a shock-erotic. Text photo exchanges with one of her clients. Scott Hayes. I can't tell how long I was staring into her phone, and while at it fell asleep on the couch. The sound of her vomiting woke me up. Tessa looked so busted, bent over the toilet. There was a flicker of pity in me, but that quickly dimmed as I recalled her betrayal. "Get the hell out of here," I told her flatly when she finally opened the door to the bathroom. Her eyes went wide. "Jared, what's wrong with you?" "What wrong?" I cut her off, seizing her phone from the nightstand and thrusting it in her face. "How have you been screwing your client, Scott Hayes?" Tessa blanched as I flipped through the incriminating photos and messages I discovered in the wee hours. "I don't know what came over me," she stammered. "That was a stupid mistake, a drunken fling. It will never happen again, I swear." I laughed bitterly. "Don't even bother your breath. We both know it's a lie. Now get your things and get out, or I will call the police." "Where am I supposed to go?" she shouted, wipes of tears staining her blotchy face. "I don't care. Just get out of my sight." The following days hazily passed as I immersed myself in work, running numbers with a single-minded focus. But my remembrance kept wandering to the picture burned in my skull. Tessa and that smarmy bastard, Scott. The more I learned about him through Tessa's belongings and some discreet digging, the more my rage solidified. Scott Hayes was a high-powered marketing executive, a serial philanderer, who thought he could do whatever he wanted without consequences. Well, he was just in for a rude awakening. Using my financial expertise and some connections at his firm, I began meticulously uncovering evidence of shady business dealing, kickbacks, and outright corruption. With each thread I pulled, the entire sordid tapestry began to unravel. By the time I had a comprehensive file detailing Scott's litany of corporate crimes, my anger had crystallized into an icy, unwavering determination. He had to pay. They both had to. The first one was fired noon via anonymous emails to Scott's business associates and the pertinent authorities. As news broke about Scott getting fired from the company, I settled back with a satisfied smile. He helped to build business through illegal means. But that was just an opening move. The real checkmate moves will come with the shattering of Tessa's life and career as well. Jared, that is merited. Stop. Martin lectured me when I was telling him about my plans. I completely understand the urge to make them hurt. But this path leads only to more bitterness and pain for everyone. I shook my head. The facades are done. They need to pay the price for their crimes, Martin. Wrist slaps are not good enough. Easier done than said. I whipped into action for Blackened. Widespread was Tessa's sordid affair, bombarded with incriminating evidence. It started appearing on inboxes within the marketing circles, from sordid details allusions to outrageous video evidence. In a matter of days, Tessa became radioactive. She now had lost nearly every client. That grim sense of hard-wrought justice being served washed in on me. They had turned to ashes the life I embraced. In the following weeks, continued the domino fall in my cold-hearted campaign. I received regular updates from an inside informant about the decay of Scott's career and his legal troubles. Meanwhile, Tessa's professional world had become a bleak wasteland. Clients dropped her left and right as the sordid details of her affair made the rounds. Part of me felt a perverse sense of satisfaction, watching her life crumble. But it was an empty, hollow victory. No amount of payback could undo the gut punch of her betrayal. "You look like hell," Martin said bluntly, when I stopped by his place one evening. "Maybe it's time to let this go, son." I shook my head weirdly. "You know I can't do that, Martin. They have to keep paying for what they did." He fixed me with a level stare. "Believe me, I understand the rage of her feeling more than anyone. But letting it consume you is a mistake I made. And I'll regret it till my dying day." Pulling an old photo from his wallet, Martin's eyes misted over. This is what I threw away. Because I couldn't let go of my anger and bitterness after your mother cheated. I don't want you making that same choice. The photo showed a happy family. Martin, his wife, and 2 grinning children. I recognized as my wife and her brother. My chest tightened at the thought of losing Liam to the same cycle of fury and vengeance. "You've made your point," I told them firmly, my voice shaking slightly. "It's time to end this for Liam's sake." The divorce proceedings were a mercifully quick affair. I sat stoically as my lawyer methodically dismantled what remained of Tessa's life, securing custody of Liam and the bulk of our assets. Across the aisle, Tessa was a shadow of her former self. The composed, confident woman I'd married, now reduced to a trembling, hollow-eyed wreck. "Mr. Thompson," the judge's voice dragged me from my reverie. "Mrs. Thompson has requested a few minutes to speak privately. Would you oblige?" I nodded curtly, motioning for Tessa to follow me into the conference room. The door had barely closed before the dam burst. "Jared, please, you have to understand," she sobbed, makeup streaking down her blotchy cheeks. "What I did was unforgivable. I know that, but you've taken everything from me. My home, my job, my whole life. Doesn't that settle the score?" I regarded her coolly. "You're still breathing, aren't you? You haven't lost half of what I did the night I saw that video." Tessa flinched as if struck. I never wanted to hurt you like this. Scott meant nothing. It was just a stupid mistake. Save it." I cut her off. "We're way past explanations or excuses. This is the bed you made, Tessa. Now you have to lie in it." Turning on my heel, I left her crumpled on the floor, keening in anguish. It should have felt like a victory, but it was just empty. Daddy, did you see?" Liam's excited voice pulled me back to the present moment. I did it. I swung all the way across. I couldn't help but smile as he ran over, cheeks flushed with pride and exertion, ruffling his sandy hair. I nodded. "You sure did, buddy. You're getting to be such a big boy." As Liam scampered off to conquer the rest of the playground, I settled onto a nearby bench. This small neighborhood park had become a sanctuary of sorts, a place where I could breathe freely away from the office and memories of that night. A familiar figure approached, and I tensed automatically, before realizing it was just Martin. We sat in companionable silence for a while, watching Liam frolic. "He's a great kid," Martin said finally. "You're doing an amazing job with him, especially after." His voice trailed off, and I knew he was remembering his own parenting struggles after the infidelity that had nearly torn his family apart decades ago. "I'm just trying to give him the childhood I never had," I replied quietly, one free of all the anger and bitterness. Martin nodded slowly. "For what it's worth, I'm proud of you, Jarrett. You showed more strength than I ever could. By walking away when you did. I felt his callous hand clasp my shoulder. Don't ever lose that strength, son. It's what'll help you move forward. And be the man Liam deserves. Watching my son chase butterflies, so blissfully unaware of the turmoil that had engulfed our lives, I felt something loosen in my chest. The future was still deeply uncertain. But I knew one thing. Liam and I would face it together, unburdened by the weights of betrayal and vengeance.